Yeah. 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 So many lies that you hear from the net, they don't get her respect. She reporting the truth, not a check. You want an unbiased opinion straight from the chest, not a bit of accomplice or someone here for a check. Tune in, these are thoughts from a lawyer on a mission who goes so hard it's like she works on commission. Trolls in the comments might say she tripping cause they lack the knowledge they don't know they missing. Got a couple current events that you like, wanna know about law from the eyes. Tired of all these blogs running lies because their agendas are disguised. Tune in to the intellect, cause I'm sure y'all missing all the facts of the case that she steady is gifting. Someone here for the people, man, it's so uplifting. If you ain't subscribed yet, then you just omitting facts.
Hello, everyone. It is Pam Esquire, also known as Your Law Intellect. Welcome, welcome, welcome to all of the intellects, to all of those that have been here for a while, even when I first started almost 2 years ago and I covered Bishop Lamor Whitehead. Now, so many people were asking me to follow up on the trial, so you guys know it's hard for me to relinquish my ears for someone else's. So your girl went from Atlanta at the Nesto hearing to New York. Yes, I was fighting traffic. I almost got hit by a car. I saw 2-3 fights in front of federal court. It was a trap. But anyway, I went down there to be with Olivia and Detective Stapler and Carisi and them. Because, you know, I just always equated to law and order. But I thank you guys that have supported. I appreciate it because I have been bouncing from city to city. So just you saying, here's $5 for something to drink. Here's $10 for lunch. I appreciate it and I acknowledge that because you guys didn't have to do it. But I'm glad that you guys have done so, showing your appreciation that your girl has been running all over this here divided states of America. So for those of you that's like, who in the heck is Bishop Lamor Whitehead? Because I have not talked about him in a long while. Bishop Lamor Whitehead, I didn't know who he was until an incident occurred that went viral. And we're going to recap on that incident.
Bishop was robbed at gunpoint in the middle of his Sunday sermon today, and it was all caught on camera. The service was being live streamed this morning when he says 3 to 4 men walked in with guns. He spoke at length with CBS 2's Lisa Rosner about why he believes he was targeted and his message for the suspects.
5 to 10 minutes into preaching Sunday morning on Remsen Avenue in Canarsie, Bishop Lamor Whitehead saw the door in the back of the room kick open.
How many of you have lost your faith because you saw somebody else die what you about to go through? Yo, all right. I seen 3 to 4 men come in. I said, all right. It's pretty much stating that I'm not going to do anything, right? Because I know y'all coming for me. Y'all coming straight to me. I don't want my parishioners hurt, right? I got women and children there. As I got down, one went to my wife and took all her jewelry and had the gun in front of my 8-month-old baby's face. Took off my bishop's ring, my wedding band, and took off my bishop's chain. And then I had chains underneath my robe. He started tapping my neck to see if anything else. So that means they knew. They watched and they knew that I have other jewelry.
The church's live stream shows the gun being held on the pastor.
They had the guns on my deacons that was at the door.
Whitehead says what you don't see on camera are around 100 congregants who were in the room. Men, women, and children dropped to the floor in silence.
My church is traumatized. The women and children are still crying. Still crying. Babies are still crying.
Police say the men took off in a white Mercedes. Whitehead says cops have a license plate and witnesses saw the men change clothes outside.
These men, they need to turn themselves in. I forgive you, and I'm praying for you. And I hope that God deliver you from the mindset of who you are at this time.
Whitehead believes his family was targeted because of the publicity he received when he helped turn in the suspect wanted in the fatal subway shooting of 48-year-old Daniel Enriquez in May.
I turned them in, but the media called me the bling bling bishop. They had my Rolls Royce car all over everywhere, and I feel that played the part in this. I think all pastors should be able to get permits for pistols.
The NYPD is investigating, and Whitehead says the mayor and top police brass have called him, pledging support to find the suspects. Fortunately, no one was hurt. In Canarsie, Brooklyn, Lisa Rosner, CBS 2 News.
In a statement, a spokesperson for Mayor Adams said, quote, no one in this city should be the victim of an armed robbery, let alone our faith leaders and congregants worshiping in a house of God. The NYPD is investigating this crime and will work tirelessly to bring the criminals involved to justice.
And you guys see Mayor Adams, and you'll see why he became a significant figure in a lot of this stuff. And so what happened was, once this happened, it went viral. Whitehead did his thing on Instagram. We didn't know who he was. I just saw another content creator posted. People were challenging the veracity of the robbery and all of that. Now, there were 3 robbers just last year. 2 of them have pled guilty, and so they're awaiting sentencing. And then one of them was unalived by the police. So they did catch the assailants. And so that's the robbery portion. But what had happened was, because all this publicity was, all of this stuff was happening and he was getting all this publicity, he started doing press conference, he being Lamor Whitehead. When he did the press conferences, he did it. He asked all the faith leaders to come. I don't think anybody showed up. But nevertheless, he did this press conference in front of where he was having his worship service, which was like an event space or something over there in Brooklyn. That's why when you see the 100, we're like, okay, those numbers of the congregants came up during the trial. So we'll get to that too. And so once Whitehead got finished talking about, the things he talked about and him being traumatized and things happening to his daughter and his wife being robbed and all of that, the reporter said, Bishop Whitehead, could you tell us about the lawsuit that has to do with Miss Pauline Anderson? Bishop Whitehead, could you tell us about your Connecticut location of which it's in foreclosure? Bishop, like all of the questions was about all these different legal issues. So because they were about legal issues, you guys know that's what I do over here. So I started covering all of his cases, and it took a while. Like I did it, there were so many all the time, right? So I was covering him all the time. And a lot of, there were other content creators that were picking it up as well. But I was, primarily because I was handling legal stuff, and then people would kind of piggyback off of when we found cases, because we had never heard of this guy. Now he's saying he was just so known and all of that, but we hadn't heard of him. And so eventually, around last year, maybe around this time, he decided he was mad at me. And that's where you see people in the chat, Kiki and Kakon, because he called me bald-headed Pam, and and I was a failed lawyer and all of that, wanted somebody to go tit for tat with him, but it wasn't that deep for me. And why I'm saying that is because I can show you DM after DM of people that had allegations related to him, and I didn't just go out and spew everything that everyone said. Interestingly, some of these DMs that I have seem to be somewhat coming to light in this trial. It's very interesting. But I did not go just and talk about whatever just because it was personal, because it never was. I was just going over the cases. But nevertheless, he took it personal because a lot of people, when they just don't have winning cases or whatever it is, they're blaming me. Like, I'm just reporting what's been filed on the public docket. Whitehead also got mad at everybody and started suing folks. So he sued 2 content creators for defamation. When Pauline Anderson sued him, and we'll get into that because she's a part of this indictment, he sued her. He sued her son. He just went on to, you get a lawsuit. You get a lawsuit. He was on there, everybody get your paperwork up and all of that stuff, So he was basically suing everybody. He sued Miss Jones, a radio jockey in New York, but he lost that. He lost that on anti-slap. That was the only one that went through pretty quickly. All the rest of them are still kind of pending, but he lost that and was ordered to pay attorney fees, which, you know. So then as this progressed, next thing you know, Whitehead was indicted. And this was, as you see, in 2022. I believe it was in December of that year. It was like right before the holiday he was indicted. So in order for me to, before I get into the trial, I have to refresh your recollection on what the factual allegations of the indictment is, so that you guys can coherently remember, because it's been so long and I want to make sure that you guys understand. So let's go to paragraph 2. No, let's start with 1. Let's just start with 1. I'm going to go. So what I'll do is, when I came in to the trial started Monday and there was jury selection. I wasn't going to jury selection because I have my own firm that I have to do work for. So I just couldn't sit there and watch them pick the people. Now they did pick 15 people. You know, you have your actual jurors, and then you have alternates. From what I remember, it was like 10 women and 5 men, but I wasn't there to know who are the actual jurors and which ones are the alternates. So I couldn't even tell you, you know, and I didn't see like what their background was and all of that. But, you know, a jury was picked on Monday. I got in on Tuesday. Well, no, I was there on Monday in New York, but I was working, so I didn't go to the actual trial. But I came to the trial on Tuesday, and I got there around 11-ish, because I definitely miscalculated the traffic. My intent was to be there at 10 o'clock. But I'm not used to this traffic. I'm not aggressive enough to drive in New York. So Dev had to take the wheel because he's from New Jersey. He's lived in New York, New York, New Jersey, for years. And so he basically told me, girl, you got to move over, because we never gonna get here with you driving, because you just way too polite. So we ended up pulling up around 10:45-ish. So when I go up, go through the whole metal detectors and all of that stuff, and you have to, if you're an attorney or a journalist, you can keep your phone. So go up there, go up to the 11th floor where it was at, and I seen that the way the court was set up, I didn't want to just walk in the middle of court, because I already knew I was gonna frazzle them, and I ain't want to throw nobody off their game. So I sat there and I waited for a minute, and then somebody was like, oh, well, they're about to go on a 10-minute break. So I was like, okay, cool. Well, I'll just wait till after their 10-minute break before I go in. Child, they opened that door. Whitehead came out with his lawyers. He looked at me like, I could not believe this happened, came all the way from Michigan to watch this trial. If he had a bubble over his head, that's what I would have that's what I would have thought that it said. I would have thought that's what he was saying. Hold on one second, guys. I gotta turn my oven off real quick. Hold on. You guys hit the like button. Okay, I'm back. Thank you guys so much for your patience. And so it starts, right? So I go and I sit down and I get my little legal pad, because I'm very serious about this thing. And see, the reason why, when I said I was exhausted, I think people that were in there were exhausted as well. But for me, and probably you may not understand it, but I cannot go on trial and just turn lawyer off. So I literally can see when you should have objected. I can see when cross-examination is a mess. I can't help it. Like, I'm always looking at how you can do better, because people, people critique me and I critique other people, and that's how you get better with what you do wrong. So I can't help but to do that. So it gets exhausting, almost like I am the one trying the case. So I get in. I have a seat, and a guy named Philip Shile, he was on there. So I miss opening and closing. So I have no clue what Whitehead is alleging the evidence will show, because that's what opening statements is supposed to tell you, the story and what the evidence will show. I missed that. So I came in on Philip Shile, and he was for Homebridge Financial Services. So before we get into his, hold on. Wait a minute. Hold on one second. I don't know what just happened. Okay, I'm back. So let me go over this indictment before we get into it. So you said to whisper. I was like, he looked at me like, oh my gosh, are you serious? I thought you were over me. So it has in paragraph 1, the charges in this indictment arise from a course of conduct in which Lamor Whitehead, the defendant, sought to enrich himself through the use of both threats and falsehoods. As part of this course of conduct, Whitehead made not only false representations in an effort to obtain loans, but also false promises that his victims' investments with Whitehead would benefit the victims financially. In fact, Whitehead, who leads a church in Brooklyn, New York, intended to and did defraud the victims by taking their money and other property with no intention of investing it, returning it, or enriching the victims. So, paragraph 2 is what this Philip Shile was the evidence to match it. So, I'm going to try to read what the allegation is, and then we'll put the evidence with what the allegation is. So, in paragraph 2, it has in or about June 2018, Lamor Whitehead, the defendant, submitted an online loan broker an application for a $250,000 business loan for Anointing Management Services, LLC. In the business loan application, Whitehead misrepresented the finances of AMS LLC, including by submitting fabricated bank statements for an AMS LLC account at Bank One. Whitehead ultimately was not issued the business loan. However, Whitehead continued to use fabricated bank statements for the Bank One account, among other fabricated bank records for AMS LLC, from at least in or about October 2018 up to and including in or about February 2019, in an effort to obtain a mortgage in excess of $1.3 million to fund Whitehead's purchase of a home in Paramus, New Jersey. The material false statements in these loan application included, among other things, entirely fabricating a bank account that did not in fact exist, and altering bank statements for the Bank One account to indicate that the AMS, which is the Anointing Management Services, had an average balance in excess of $2 million, when in fact, during the time period, AMS LLC had an average ending balance of less than $10. So Mr. Shile gets on the stand and he says he is a general counsel, which is an attorney, for Homebridge Financial Services. And he explained the mortgage process that is required in the application, the application process. They asked him the definition of a mortgage. Listen, the assistant U.S. prosecutors was slow rolling it. If you didn't know anything, you were going to learn today. That was United States of America University, because if you didn't know, they were starting from scratch. Wasn't going to be no Hans, wasn't going to be no way. What? You are going to understand everything almost to ad nauseum. So he talks about how a loan application was submitted. Pre-loan application was submitted by Whitehead. I think it was like October 2018. And all of the information like that he submitted to try to get this Paramus home that we've all seen, the big mansion, right? So he applied for a conventional loan, and his employment information is, he said he worked at Anointing Management Services. So this was a company of which he created, and he said he is the CEO. So then they show the assets and they have the liability side. So, and then you submit a lot of documents if you guys have purchased homes. So you submit bank statements, he submitted like check stubs for Anointing Management LLC, like copies of checks, not stubs, but the actual copies of the checks. And the bank statements, they had Mr. Shaw go over. This is what he used for verifying to get this loan. So they had certain, like a bank account ended in 4060, I think it was, and 4078. So he had one from Wells Fargo that was a personal account. Then he had one from Wells Fargo, which was a business account. So this is what one of them had, a listed balance on his assets of like $460,829.38. So that was like, I think, the personal one. Then on the other one for Anointing Management LLC, it had a balance of well over $1 million, like 1,985,000. You know, give a couple numbers, right? So they go over that. They show copies of a check that went out to Anointing Management LLC that he used as proof of, I guess, this company having money, and the amount that was in there, whatever was maybe 400 and something thousand, I think is what the check was, and it was drawn off of Bank of America. So eventually, Whitehead's application was approved, and he was able to get a mortgage of $1,312,000. That was the loan amount he got from Homebridge. So they go over on whether, how the closing works, that Whitehead signed the document. He had to show ID. There was a notary validating it and all of that. So then this is what this guy basically, he's presenting all of the documents and showing what was presented for Whitehead to get this loan. All the stuff he presented, this was his signature. We have a notary, all of that. This is the process. So that's pretty much what his purpose was. So then on cross-examination, I guess one of the applications had a DocuSign. So it wasn't like specifically, obviously, signed in ink. So his cross-examination from his attorney was, scroll down to exhibit, whatever the exhibit was. He was like, is that a DocuSign on the application? So you're really not sure if that was Lamor Whitehead who signed it. I said, oh my gosh. This is going to be the defense. Because I didn't know what the defense was, because I didn't see the opening. So I'm curious just to see what the defense is. So then he goes kind of through. The defense was a lot of open-ended questions, and usually you do leading questions. So the defense was kind of asking about, I guess, Homebridge and PayPal merged together, and PayPal is like, now they own Homebridge. Like, they started going through all of this stuff that you start getting confused at where they were going with it and what company did he deal with and whatever. So that's really that. So not much to talk about with him. But then Jeffrey Burris gets on the stand. He comes in. He said, I have worked for Wells Fargo for 27 years. I am the fraud claims department. So his role is he responds to subpoenas and lawsuits, and he researches cases and all of that for Wells Fargo. So then the government starts putting up exhibits, and they say, on the left, we have red at the top. On the right, we have green at the top. Make sure my address ain't on here. We have red at the top. On the right, we have green on the top. The red means this is not a real Wells Fargo bank account statement. The green means this is the real Wells Fargo bank account statement. So, according to this guy, Lamor Whitehead opened up an account with Wells Fargo, a personal account, on April 6th of 2018. On that same day, he also opened up a business account for Anointing Management LLC. And he did it in person, right? He went in there. So he opened it April 6, 2018. But the documents you've seen and read, they were from before April 6, 2018. So the guy showed that he did not open the account until April 6, 2018. So they said, well, is the document on the right? Is that a real document from Wells Fargo? He said, no. They said, well, how do you know? He said, because he didn't open it till April 6, 2018, but this document say February 6, 2018. So they had bank statements that were from before he even opened the account. I said, so then they go on and they go through. We want to go over the opening account, right? For April 6, 2018. How much money is in that account? What was that? What was the balance on the closing? $4.28. I said, what? $4.28. What was the closing balance? $49.66. They said on the March 25th document, 2018 to April 4, 2018, that is considered a quote falsified document. How much is the average balance on that account? $3,449,779.73. What? So then they go on the green true copy. How much was in his bank account? $1,077. On the false one that you're saying is not a real authentic document from Wells Fargo, how much is it? $460,829.35. Thank you so much, Deborah, for the super sticker. Then they just keep doing it. They was like, on the true copy, how much is it? $18.80. On the falsified copy, how much is it? $346,351.01. What? So then they said on the 4060 account, which was open, it was only open from April to July. It was a personal account ending in 4060. It was only open from April to July. So in April, it was $7.59. In May, it was $73.92. In June, it was negative $80.08. In July, it was negative $8.08. And the account was closed based on overdraft. So basically, they just, excuse me, they just chalked it up as a loss. So what they did was, so apparently even though whatever this indictment is, it's only for this getting, I think, the home loan. They also apparently, I guess he's tried to submit for other loans or something, because they mentioned a sunset equity file. It was a couple of other files that had bank statements that was in there. So that's not a part of the indictment. But so the jury will get a limiting instruction that they can't use that, because I think they're using it for motive and MO, I think is their purpose. So they have to give a limiting instruction that even though there may be other, bad acts or whatever, that's not what the indictment was for. So then on cross-examination, Whitehead's attorney basically asked the guy, you don't know who submitted these documents, correct, to these companies? He's like, no. I mean, of course not. He's just reviewing these documents. He's just reviewing to show that they're not authentic Wells Fargo documents. And another reason why he knows it is there seems like there was a mixture of the checking and the business. So like, I think it was like, I want to get this wrong. I want to say the business account only has everyday business. And I think personal has everyday simple personal account or something like that. But somehow they don't have a everyday simple account or something for business, and the titles were switched or something like that. So he mentioned like that was another indicator because the titles on the business and the personal were somehow interchanged. So then thank you so much, Harold, for the super sticker. So then they have cross-examination. And in the cross-examination, the attorney basically they did better because they were actually leading. It wasn't like these open-ended questions, but they were like asking him basically, you don't know who submitted the documents. Of course, he said no because he wasn't there. You don't know who altered these documents. He was like, no. You have no info personally about the documents. He said no. Or who ordered someone to do so if they ordered them to. He was like, no. So that's pretty much their cross-examination, just showing like really all you know is there are documents, some are real, some are fake, but you don't know who actually altered the documents. You don't know who submitted the documents because these were documents submitted trying to get loans. And this person from Wells Fargo is there just there trying to tell what is the Wells Fargo document and what's not. So then Whitehead's attorney pulls up exhibits that show he has another business account called Lamor Whitehead Inc. So he goes over all of, I guess, the balances, and these balances he has decent balances in. So I guess they were trying to basically show he got money, so he has no reason to really try to alter these documents. I'm just speculating on what their reasoning is, but they really did go through each one. So like they were like, on this month there was 30K. This month the ending balance was 25K. This month the ending balance was 93K. 1 month was 23,488, and they go on all the way up. There was one where it was $250,131. It was one that was $305,086.77. 303,250. So they're showing like all these different deposits from Lamor Whitehead Inc. And so one of the questions that they did ask for Whitehead was, is it possible for multiple people to have access to accounts? Because it is a business. So, it's a good question to ask that. They were like, yeah. So he basically says, he goes through all of the different things. And his thing was, so you would agree with me that over this time, Whitehead has deposited at least about $2 million in his Lamor Whitehead Inc. account. And he was like, yeah, because they submitted those accounts from Wells Fargo as well. And those accounts, I guess those statements, none of those were considered fraudulent. So we had all of those big numbers. So then the AUSA comes back up on redirect and said, you don't know where any of that money came from Lamor Whitehead Inc. Is that right? He was like, no. He said, so you don't know how he got that money, right? No, don't know where it came from. So then they go to the bank statement that shows that immediately before receiving check, because remember, Pauline Anderson, who we'll get to next, Pauline Anderson gave him $90,000, and we'll read that in the indictment. So the AUSA pulls up one of the bank statements and shows that immediately before receiving the check from Pauline Anderson, there were $17,995 in the bank account. And then you put the $90,000 in there. Then she pulls up another day of Whitehead where he got like a $245,000 deposit from Beth H. Federal or something like that. and was like, prior to that, he only had $2,694 in the bank. So where did he get the Beth H. Federal? We don't know nothing about that. So their whole thing where they were backtracking, like, but we don't know. They was questioning. They were basically planting the seeds that we shouldn't even pay these amounts no attention because we don't know where they came from. It's basically what they said. And we know one of them was $90,000, which is a part of this indictment. And this Beth Federal for $245,000. We don't know where that deposit had came from or whatever. So then the judge kind of told them to speed this thing up. So they didn't really do too much more because I think she seen that they probably was going to go over every statement and try to figure out where the money came from, but they only picked those two. So then that was that. So that was the bank statements part. That was their cross-examination. Again, I didn't hear opening, so I have no clue how they really plan on combating these documents and all of that. It sounds like they're trying to maybe place reasonable doubt as to who actually signed the stuff, who really submitted it. Listen, I don't know. But the prosecution came back and they was like, it was a notary. They put his ID up, when it came to the closing. His ID was there, right? And then you got to look at who benefited from it. I mean, there was a whole house. So I don't know. Honestly, I'll try to be unbiased, but I ain't see the defense on that. But we'll see. So then we have Miss Pauline Anderson. And Pauline Anderson, we all heard about from after the robbery occurred. And I told you guys in the beginning of this live, there was a press conference and we found out that Pauline Anderson had sued him. So let's go to Pauline Anderson. Pauline Anderson is number 3 in the indictment. And it has from at least in or about April 2020 up to and including in or about July 2021, Lamor Whitehead, the defendant, elicited approximately $90,000 from an individual who attended his church through a series of cell phone and internet communications with victim 1 and her son. So victim 1 is Pauline Anderson, and then her son is Rashid Anderson. Under the terms of their agreement, Whitehead would use the money to assist victim 1 in obtaining a home, and after doing so, Whitehead would otherwise be able to use the money as an investment in his real estate business. However, shortly after victim 1 transferred Whitehead the money from her retirement savings, Whitehead instead used victim 1's money to purchase thousands of dollars of luxury goods and clothing, and he continued to use victim 1's money for his own purposes. Whitehead never helped victim 1 obtain a home and has not returned victim 1's money, despite her request that he do so. And this is exactly what is in Miss Anderson's lawsuit that we went over a long time ago. She says she started attending Leaders of Tomorrow. Upon information and belief, Mr. Whitehead is and at all times represented himself to be a bishop of the church. Mr. Whitehead was also an aspiring candidate to political office, having ran in the 2021 Democratic primary for the office of Brooklyn Borough President. On or about April 2020, Mr. Whitehead was personally introduced by phone to Miss Anderson by her son, Rashid Anderson. Miss Anderson was recovering from life-threatening surgery, and Mr. Whitehead offered to join her on a phone call to pray for her health. Mr. Whitehead had previously assisted Rashid in securing housing for him personally. So Miss Anderson takes the stand. She is actually Jamaican. She was born in Jamaica in 1965. She came here in the United States in 2004, and she lives in Brooklyn, New York. She's lived in Brooklyn for 12 years. She's like in a 3-family type home is where she was living at. And she lives at that time, she was living with her mom, I think her sister, and Rashid was living with her as well. She's a nurse practitioner that works at the city hospital, and she deals with people with like chronic and long-term illnesses. She knew Lamor Whitehead from church. So according to Miss Anderson, and Rashid comes and testifies after her, but according to Miss Anderson, Rashid's then girlfriend, who is now his wife or fiance, I think she's fiance at the time, invited Rashid's fiance, current wife, somehow was connected to Asia. Asia invited her to church for New Year's of 2020. So I think it was it 2019 going into 2020 is what it sounds like. So Rashid invites his mom. So all them go to leaders of tomorrow. Miss Anderson said during this time, as you see in her lawsuit, she had just had a traumatic health scare. She had a pulmonary embolism. So she had blood clots in her lungs. And so she was facing a lot of spirituality, mortality. You go through a whole lot when you were facing death. And so she went there. She said she met Whitehead at the church. She thought he was a man of God. He was very integral. All of that. Like, she really, she was feeling him. Okay. So he did pray for her while she was there. And she said she only went like one other time after that, but she stopped going because you got to remember it was the pandemic and she just had issues with her lungs. So she stopped going too. She never joined or anything. She did say she was not a member because that was a big thing Whitehead was saying. She was not my parishioners. Okay. She said she didn't join. She just went twice physically and then she watched him online and she also participated in his prayer call. So she said she stopped going there because when she went there, she said everybody there was in their 20s, 20 something or early 30s. And that ain't her crowd because she's an older woman. So she didn't that wasn't her thing. But she did say, they said, well, how many people were there? She was like about 20, 23 people or whatever when she went. So she said it was 20 something people there. So then she said she started doing the 4 a.m. prayer call. Yeah. So then she says she learned that Whitehead said he was in real estate and all of that. So Rashid did join. So when we get into Rashid's testimony, we'll get into that. But Rashid joined and he continuously went there and he actually became a leader. So he was an elder and a junior pastor is what he testified to. So after 2 weeks or something. So he was consistently in contact with Whitehead. So I don't want to overlap into his testimony, but he was the real one with the relationship. So that's why it was very interesting that his text and his emails were it was just a lot of it because he was the one with the relationship with Whitehead. So Miss Anderson, Miss Pauline testified that she co-signed for Rashid to get a house. So Whitehead helped Rashid to get a house, and he gets more extensive information in his testimony related to the process and stuff. But Whitehead helped Rashid get a home, and Miss Anderson co-signed for Rashid. So she let him know that she wanted to also get a house herself. And this is where the whole housing situation comes up. So at the closing, the AUSA gets into that. She was at that. Miss Anderson was at Rashid's closing and all of that. And then I think Whitehead performed Rashid's wedding. I mean, she was just getting into how close they were. So then Miss Anderson gets sick again. She was in the hospital and Whitehead, there was a prayer call and Whitehead actually was on the 3-way and they did the prayer call as well. So he was, she was feeling him she thought he was a man of God. That's what she kept saying. He's saying a man of integrity, all of that. So she basically, after Rashid bought the house, she started getting the idea, hey, I have my mom and my sister that live with me. If something happens to me, they may not have a place to stay because Rashid done got his own house. He got married. He done had a kid, all of that. So she wanted to get a house. So Whitehead hooked her up. The issue was she had credit problems because she said she had loans for like her nephews or something on her credit report. So she had issues with credit where she couldn't get a loan. That was one of the reasons why she really didn't want to co-sign too, because she felt like if she co-signed for Rashid, then it would prevent her from getting a house. So apparently Whitehead has some group of which they were some guy who does credit repair. So a lot of people in the church were going to this guy to help get their credit right. And Miss Anderson was a part of it. So there were some things that they were doing to try to help her credit. He also hooked her up with some broker or something to try to get her a loan. So she calls the guy to try to get the loan. And because of her credit, she could not get a loan. And this corresponds with what they say. So this is all what I just said is what's in my notes that she testified to, and it kind of matches what she said in her lawsuit. That Mr. Whitehead had previously assisted Rashid in securing housing for him personally. Accordingly, and due to his position of trust within the church, Rashid arranged a further call with Mr. Whitehead and Miss Anderson on or about July 15, 2020, because she was seeking to purchase a home. On the call, Mr. Whitehead represented himself as a party who could assist Miss Anderson in doing so by offering advice on how to improve her credit score to secure favorable mortgage terms, and 2, assisting in locating suitable properties from which she could choose to purchase. On or about July 22nd, 2020, Mr. Whitehead joined Miss Anderson and Rashid on a phone call with the representative from America, a lending institution in which Miss Anderson maintained an individual retirement account containing her life savings. On that call, Mr. Whitehead directed Miss Anderson and the Transamerica rep in moving $100,000 from her IRA into Miss Anderson's personal checking account. Now, Miss Anderson testified that she told Whitehead she only wanted to move $50,000, and he told her she needed to transfer $100,000. So that's where the $100,000 came from. So a lot of this stuff, Rashid was on the call. He was kind of the middleman because he was the one with the relationship with Whitehead. So I think his name was Sean Carson, was the one she tried to get one from the bank. So let's go on. So Mr. Whitehead did this for the purpose of perpetrating the fraud and conversion. Well, we don't got to read that. On or about July 27, 2020, Miss Anderson was introduced to Mr. Whitehead in a telephone call with an associate of his who identified himself as Mark Kaplan, a mortgage loan officer with Crown Home Mortgage. On the phone call with Mr. Whitehead and Mr. Kaplan, Miss Anderson was told that based on her low credit score, it would be difficult to obtain financing for a house. On or about October 14, 2020, Miss Anderson was introduced by Mr. Whitehead in a telephone call with another associate of his who identified himself as Sean Carson. He's the vice president of Federal Savings Bank. On that phone call with Mr. Whitehead and Mr. Carson, Miss Anderson was told that because of her having co-signed on one of her children's school loans, which was in arrears, she was unlikely to be able to secure financing for a house in the immediate future. So between October and November of 2020, Mr. Whitehead called Miss Anderson and indicated that because Mr. Kaplan and Mr. Carson had advised that she would have difficulty obtaining financing, he wanted to present an alternative proposal to secure housing for her. So this is where Whitehead comes in because she could not get a mortgage. So she ended up paying Whitehead, and we went over a lot of this before, because a lot of this with her testimony, but she ended up, this was the cashier's check, if you guys remember, that she made to Lamor Whitehead Inc., and it was from Pauline Anderson. And so she ended up making that withdraw, and she took out $90,018, I think, or whatever it is, $15, whatever it is you got to pay for the cashier's check. And so the only thing, according to her, she said Whitehead, it was a time where there was a property of which Whitehead had her go to, and it was two other people from his church along with Rashid. And it was like it was like one piece of land with a strip in between the houses is what she described it as. So there were two houses next to each other, but it seemed like it was on the same plot of land. And she said she looked at the houses and she did not like them because it was by the train tracks. And she said even while they were standing there, the train tracks was like, rrr, rrr, rrr. So she knew that if she lived there, she wasn't going to get no peace. So she said, this is nothing that I want. And she said the house was too small. So then she said, now the way this whole situation was set up was Miss Anderson was supposed to give Whitehead $90,000. Whitehead was supposed to secure the house and also fix it up. And then I guess deed the house back to Anderson, but then she would get a mortgage. It was real convoluted and complicated because the way it was presented is it's almost like she was investing $90,000. And I'm sure this is going to be his argument because the way it was set up, it sounds like she was giving him $90,000, almost like you're a lender. He was going to buy the house, and it was almost like she was going to buy it back from him, is really what was going to happen. But he was really doing the fixer-uppers and stuff using her money. She planned on living in the property. So she kept calling it investment property. And I think his attorneys were kind of keep on highlighting that. Like, it's an investment. It's an investment. It's an investment. But so, and how it was going to be is once the $90,000 was given, Whitehead was supposed to pay her while he was holding her $90K. He was supposed to pay her $100 a month. So basically $1,200 total is what he's supposed to give her. So I guess in January, he did pay her the $100. It was supposed to be the interest rate for holding the money. That's why I said it sounded like it was kind of a flip. Like anybody watch the fixer-uppers and flip your houses on the home networks or whatever, that's what it sounded like, a situation like that, because he said he's in the real estate and all of that, but she wanted to find a way to own a house. So I'm gonna give you the 90,000, you're gonna use it and you're gonna find the house and then you're gonna fix it up, and then I guess I buy it back. And then she somehow was supposed to get the 90,000 back too. It was just real complicated the way it was sounding. So I know it sounds complicated when I'm telling you, but yeah. Then she said, I guess what ended up happening was she had family in Jamaica that wanted to buy some land. So all of them were going to buy this land. They had an opportunity, but they were splitting up the cost for them to have this land for their family. So she needed $5,000. So she asked for $5,000 back. So she asked Rashid to get $5,000 from him. And I think he gave Rashid the money or whatever to give to her to give to the people in Jamaica. Because she does have a thick accent, so that's why I want to make sure some of my numbers aren't off when it comes to her, because there was a lot of put the mic to your mouth. Can you speak up? It was, and I hope it doesn't get lost with the jury, because you can tell that to me she came across credible, but it was a lot of mumbling. Like it was a lot of unsurety. Like, and I know it's not easy to be on the stand and then put the mic up because you couldn't really hear and all of that. So there were some things that it was just difficult, So then in May of 2021, now all this time after the two properties, she testified he never showed her any more property. So then when May 2021 came, she found out that her landlord was selling her the building she lived in. And so she said when that happened, she was really like tense, like, I'm gonna need my money back because he hasn't been looking for no houses for me. So she started kind of pressing him to get his money back, to get her money back when that stuff happened. So then the AUSA started putting up texts. Some of the texts we saw already because they were a part of let me see. They were a part of the lawsuit. So, yeah, May 17th, as you guys see, of 2021, she's like, "Hi, Bishop, reaching out to you for the refund of this money. I am sure Rashid reached out to you already for this. One of the things I repeatedly asked for was a contract in writing, which I never received. However, long story short, I need a return of this money to go ahead with my business transaction. Where I am living is being sold, and I need to go forward. Thanks for your time." What is very interesting about this case, guys, everything that people testify to, they almost have text messages or emails to back it up. And it almost seems overly. So if you didn't believe what they said, they literally have it in writing, and they have turn to the next text, flip to the next text. When Rashid got on the stand, they had a binder like this full of his texts and emails, and he said it wasn't everything that of his conversations with Whitehead. So he responds, "Good afternoon. Rashid told me you signed a document and I was sending him payments." Let me see. "The money is already being invested. Rashid has been disrespectful and I'm very disappointed in him. I've helped him and his wife immensely and have helped them with a lot, including giving him money for a mortgage payment, etc. And this is well before my business transaction was done. The document that you were supposed to sign, you wouldn't be able to remove the money for 1 year to protect us for things like this and still get our business done. I am a man of integrity and you will not lose. I just gave him $5,000 out of my money to give to you because he said you needed it. However, I can't touch any more of my money because I'm campaigning right now. If you need me and you to do another contract, I'm open to it so that you will feel more secure." Well, he said feel, more secure. "However, at this point, the investments have started. I just had everything on hold until the end of June." She says, "Unfortunately, life has changed and I need to go forward and I don't want to be back and forth, but that money, I need it back. So we need to discuss when this will happen seriously and unfortunately." Then he says, "I understand and I did not know the urgency, but I can't do anything right now because the money has already been invested." And it's just really ironic to me that as soon as Rashid gets disrespectful, that now all of these sense of urgencies have just been created. After my campaign, I'll see what I can do as far as how I can expedite, slip in a few properties to get your money back. Maybe he meant flip. And a few properties to get your money back, but it will be towards August or September when I can start to give you something back because the contract was supposed to be until December. Look, Bishop, with all due respect, I really don't want to talk about you and Rashid. I will be discussing something I have no context of, which would be inappropriate for me. So when these text messages would happen, the AUSA would ask, "Well, what did you mean by that when you said no disrespect?" So she didn't have any idea why him and Rashid fell out, but we're going to get into that next. But she had no idea. She just was in her situation. You ain't found her house and she want her money back. So, of course, as we know, she never really got her money back. So then, let me see. I'm trying to make sure I don't say, because I'm trying to get to Rashid, y'all, because he was like, I was like, zip. My. I think that was the end of the day for her, and then we like resumed the next day. Cause let me see. Yeah, I think we resumed the next day. So then the AUSA was like, "This would be a real good part of the closing." They said, "Miss Anderson, What did that $90,000 mean to you that Mr. Whitehead never gave back to you? She said, it was my whole life. It meant everything. It meant everything. It's all that I had. I would take those quotes, baby, and that would be a part of my closing. So then she talks about how she was on the prayer call. They get back into it on the next day about how she was on the prayer call when she was in the hospital and that she had blockages, I guess, in her sinuses, and it was so close to her brain, so they had to drain it. So Miss Anderson was going through a lot, and he basically was on there for the prayer calls. So then they asked Miss Anderson, do you know what a seed is? Do you? She said, you give to the church, and when you give, it's supposed to be multiplication. Miss Anderson, do you know what a tithe is? Yes, it's 10% of your earnings. And how do you seed in Mr. Whitehead's church? We use his Cash App. So then she asked her, she said, well, how do you feel? How do you feel that, what you're going through? They were objecting and stuff because they didn't really want that to come out. So then she said, this is nothing that you expect from a man of God. People fall out with each other every day, but you call yourself a man of God and you do the worst possible thing. And what she was referring to was because I'm going to show you. This was a part of the exhibits as well. And it also was a part of the civil lawsuit. So this is Whitehead and Whitehead and somebody named Erica. That's an elder at the church. It's somebody named Erica and Leslie, I guess, that were elders at the church that were a part of a lot of this stuff, and they were the two that actually went to the two properties that Miss Anderson did go see, or the one property on two houses on one piece of land that she did go to, and said that she didn't want. This was one of the exhibits that the government used, but it's also attached to the civil lawsuit, and it says from Whitehead, "Good morning, Rashid. You are a liar!" Exclamation. And I promise you, God will deal with you. If you want to hire a lawyer, have them contact me. At this point, you are a liar and a deceiver. Nothing you have said is accurate, and you have a demon that only God can deal with. Now watch God's judgment on your life. This is May 19th. Psalms 105 and 15. You are trying to make false documents by text. You will see how much God loves me. You are a liar and a deceiver. I'm in awe of how the devil is using you. However, I knew it was coming. Now beware of the hand of judgment will hit your life and everything that's connected to you. I will also send you proof and bills from people that I hired months ago to start the process of investments. And for the record, anything that was given to me is a donation unless it's attached to a contract. He got exclamation points. That's why I'm yelling, y'all. I was making investments. That's what I do, for the record. So then this is Miss Anderson, who said, all of this because of what? Because you took money that you refused to pay back, and now you're quoting scripture to serve your purpose. This is so offensive. And did you just go there? You said you were a man of integrity. Where in all of this is that? So much passive aggressive tone to your conversation. I told you already, you are not having a back and forth. This is not my style, and it shouldn't be yours as you lead followers. Think about that. Now, you are actually asking God to strike my son because you both fell out with each other. Unbelievable. I don't have to tell you who you are every time you text it, because text it speaks to the heart of who you are. So then after that, the AUSA said, what do you mean by that? So that's when she said, this was nothing that she expects from a man of God. People fall out with each other every day, but you call on God to do the worst possible thing. You don't wish for God to have vengeance and someone who holds a high seat. And so then she says, I am hereby notifying you, Bishop, that as of today, you have 5 business days to return the money. May 25th, 2021, or I will be notifying the police, the press, and your campaign. So she testified that she had contacted a lawyer who basically told her that this is what she should tell him. And so thank you guys so much for the cash apps. I appreciate that. And so he responds to her and basically says, let's go. How about you do it today? That was his response to her calling the police. You're going to see my power. Psalms 105 and 15. I'll be coming for both of your jobs, saying I'm going to come for your job and Rashid's job. This is all in text. This is all what the jury is seeing in response to this. And so then the AUSA said, did you understand what Psalms 105 and 15 means? And she just said, not really, she didn't know exactly what it said or whatever, but I think she acknowledged that maybe it was scripture, but she didn't know what it said. So then Whitehead text, basically, you will be blocked at any defamation of character that you do. You basically, all your conversation you want to have to me, you need to talk to this Erica person. And was like, you are blocked. So any defamation of character, I will sue you. So that was the last conversation that she had with him in the text message. And then, yeah, that's what she said. Let me see if I had it. I don't think it was another one. No, but they got text. What I'm telling you, I'm just pulling out a few quotes, but they had text for all of this stuff. So then on cross-examination, Whitehead's attorneys basically said, did you do anything to find your own house? She's like, no. That's what I hired, gave him the money for. No, she just said no. So they asked, did she do anything? Did she look at any houses? Did she try to get a realtor? All of that stuff. No. So then they go into like her co-signing the loan for her son. And then they asked her, was she a member? She said, oh, and by the way, were you a member of Whitehead's church? Y'all know where that came from, because that's what Whitehead kept saying. She keeps saying she's a parishioner. She's not a parishioner. So she did say she was never a member of his church. She said she really didn't have direct conversations with Whitehead. A lot of the stuff was Rashid being kind of the middle person. All communications were through Rashid. So then they asked, like, from July through November, did she do anything else to try to get a loan? When was the last time you spoke to Mr. Carson, which is the loan officer? And then you say it was a $90,000 investment to buy a house. Trying to use the word investment, And then ask, well, did you ever talk to Whitehead and tell him what your expectations were? Because she was saying what her expectation was, that she gave him the money, he was going to get the house, fix it up. He would deed the title to her. She would take a mortgage out, and however that I guess they were going to somehow divvy the profit or something from however it goes. But his attorney basically said, did you tell him what your expectations were? And she said, well, based on the conversation I had with them, he said he would buy the house, renovate it, then turn it over to her. And he, she didn't understand it, that it was based on, like, she took any risk. And that if she knew it was any risk, that she would not have invested her money like that if she knew that it was a risk, because it was her retirement. So then the guy from so then she gets off the stand, And it was a guy from Bank of America. He flew in, so he was going to be real quick. So he basically was where showing the cashier's check. I'm telling you, every part of their case, they had someone to do a foundation. A lot of times you just stipulate to some of this stuff, but every part of the case, they are putting evidence to back whatever they say. Whatever words come out these people's mouths, they got evidence to back it up. So the guy comes in, Zachary Chromiak, and he's the vice president of Consumer Associates Affairs or something that got to do with dealing with subpoenas and stuff as well at Bank of America. So he basically shows how the money that Miss Anderson had came from her retirement account and it was transferred to the Bank of America account. And so he shows that transfer. But then he also shows, then the AUSA puts a check up from Bank of America that is made out to that Anointing Services Management Services LLC. They put the check on the screen. I'm thinking this guy is only going to talk about Miss Anderson's cashier's check. So they put a check on the screen that shows a check that was from Bank of America and it was made out to Anointing Services LLC. And it was for October 9, 2018. It was in the amount of $479,800. Thank you so much for gifting, Rain. See, I appreciate that. You guys make sure you thank her if you get the membership. So he shows a picture of the check, and the check basically is in the corner. It has Bank of America. So then the AUSA is like, is that a Bank of America check? The guy was like, no. So one of the copies of the check, it had Bank of America at the top. And let me tell you how they said they knew it was not a Bank of America account. The payee was Anointed Management Services, but the payor was someone named Ray Anum, A-N-U-M. This guy, Mr. Chromiak, said they went through the system and they don't have anybody by their name that has an account at Bank of America. And you cannot issue checks from Bank of America without having an account at Bank of America. So they said that check was invalid. It was for $479,800 and it was made out to Anointing Services LLC. So apparently, I believe it was one of the documents that may have been submitted to try to get one of these loans or whatever to show the income. And the man said that is not a Bank of America check because we don't have nobody by that name that can have an account. Oh, I keep hitting this thing. Sorry, guys. Hold on a second. So that was him. He was a quick one. You know, he flew in and he flew out. So then you have Rashid Anderson. He gets on the stand. He says he has a master's degree in health administration. He also does real estate. So he has a real estate brokerage firm now. Before he was like a manager at the health systems, like that's what related to his degree. And at that time, I guess he did start his real estate company at the same time he was working as this healthcare manager. So from 21 to 23, he was both a real estate broker and he worked at the healthcare place. So he goes on to say that his fiance, Jarvian, I think is her name, went to an event where Whitehead's wife was presenting. So Asia, when she was there, she invited folk to come to the New Year's Eve service. Now, what was interesting too, I got to back up to the first testimony. They also showed, and I don't know when Whitehead married her, but they also showed the document from the deed And he had on there he was a single man when he bought that house in Paramus, New Jersey. But I digress. I did see that though. I was like, oh, that's interesting. So while he's at this New Year's Eve service, he says Whitehead prophesied to him. And then the AUSA said, well, what does prophecy mean? He said, well, the Holy Spirit gives word to give to a person. So he said, well, what did you think about Whitehead at that time? He said, I thought he was a stand-up man. He said he went to church after that every Sunday. And then he described the church. They had 1 hour of prayer. And then his wife did the worship. And then he'll preach. And he said he prayed with Whitehead daily by phone. And he was a junior pastor and elder. They said, well, how long did it take you to become a junior pastor or elder? He said within the first few weeks, he was in that role. First 2 weeks. So then they asked, well, is these paid positions? He said, no, everyone was volunteers at the church. So they said, well, and how many people would have been in position in January 2020 when you first started there? How many would have been in leadership position? He said between 5 and 10 people. Then they said, well, in May 2021, which is around when he left, when you see that text and all of that, he said it was probably around 20 people, 20 something people that may have been in leadership. Thank you so much, Lily. I appreciate that super sticker. Then he says, what are your duties? He said, well, I handled the camera, I did the live stream, I set up the music, and I made sure everybody was in position. He said Whitehead called him his spiritual son. So they asked him, did you have a father when you grew up? They asked Miss Anderson about being a single parent or if she had help as well in her testimony. And she said Rashid's dad was not there. So they asked Rashid, did you have a father? He was like, no, like no. So he said Whitehead called him his spiritual son and he thought they were close. And he said they talked every day. And he said I guess he started calling him to ask him advice. So like he was there every Sunday. He's talking to him now on this prayer line. And he said he will call him. So for example, Valentine's Day, they put up a text message and they showed that he asked him, well, Valentine's Day is tomorrow. Do you have any idea of what I should get my fiance at the time? Thank you so much. To get my fiance at the time. So they were showing the personable text messages, how he really looked to Whitehead as a spiritual, more than a spiritual leader, but like a father figure is how he started looking to Whitehead. So like he talks to Whitehead about, I guess, opening a business or something. And Whitehead said, no, you should be focused on buying a house. So they start showing all of these different text messages where he was showing Whitehead his credit score and all the different credit bureaus and all of that. So then the AUSA said, have you been to Whitehead's house? And he was like, yes, it was on the one-on-one supporter lane. So he said he went to his house like once or twice a week. So he describes his house. So he describes the bedroom, how it has the canopy bed, and then the bathroom has the bathtub with all of the power jets in it. And then he has a room that's dedicated to his sneakers. Then he has another room with designer clothes like Gucci and Fendi and Louis Vuitton. And then he has his church stuff in that room as well. And he said Whitehead called him his son and told him that he loved him. And they showed a lot of text and stuff where he was saying that. And he also was saying, like, had he ever seen, like, he got to the point where he was just describing, like, later on, he ended up describing all of the designer stuff that he had. Because in court now, Whitehead has on his Easter suit. Like, seriously. He has on his, I said a Baptist suit, but he got on the plain suit. He don't have no earrings in. The bishop's ring is gone. He is as plain can be. His attorney said, do not come in here looking like you got all this money and these people are accusing you of the things that they're accusing you of. So he has followed protocol and procedure and advice, and he is in there looking real regular. Ain't no G's, ain't no LVs, ain't no F's, ain't none of that on them outfits up there in the Southern District of New York. So they show, and they show like text, because I guess it was a guy named Keith and he was the credit repair guy. So he was helping all the people in the church to be able to get their credit together. So it was a group thing where they was trying to get their credit together and stuff. So they were showing text of that, of them trying to get their credit together. And Whitehead said, and they did it on a Zoom, like all the classes we heard about them on Zoom. He said he participated with other members and staff. And, Whitehead said he had over 20 years experience in real estate and he owns a mortgage company. So then he said he started looking at houses. So they're showing the houses, like literally Whitehead is helping this man step by step to get a house. He don't know how to get a house. Every move he makes, he like messaged 20 houses that he was looking at. He would tell them what this person said, what the mortgage guy said, what this person said. So it was a plethora of just text messages going through the process to let them know that he was a part of every move that he made. So again, then the AUSA gets back on his jewelry and stuff and was like, did he wear any jewelry? He was like, yes, he had he had a ring and it was like this big. He was like, it's like this big with red in the middle and it got diamonds all around it. And then he got the big thick cross and the chain, and he got the watch with the diamonds on it. And he said, I assumed he had a lot of money. They asked, did you think he had money? He was like, yeah, I assumed he had a lot of money based on the way he dressed and all of that. So apparently Rashid couldn't get this loan on his own. So he wanted his mommy, Pauline, to sign for him. And so Pauline was skeptical because she was like, I already got this stuff with my nephews on here. I'm trying to get my stuff together. I want to be able to get me my own house. So she wasn't going to co-sign for him. She was skeptical. So Whitehead basically said, don't worry about it, son. I'll talk to your mom and I'll get her, tell her how it's going to be, that basically in 6 months, you'll be able to refinance and take her name off of it. So Whitehead talked to Pauline Anderson and explained it to her that after 6 months, she can get her name off of it. It's not going to affect her, all of that. Whatever he said worked because she ended up co-signing for him. And there was a text message showing, memorializing it. When I say everything was memorialized, it was a text message where Rashid was thanking Whitehead for basically talking to his mom for her and getting her to go ahead and co-sign for the loan. So then the AUSA said, well, did you do things aside from your duties over there that were a part of you being an elder? Did you do things outside of being an elder, like that was not pertaining to the church? Rashid said, oh yeah, I worked on outside of it. I would look for buildings for him to get a church. Now they put them addresses up there and I couldn't see them because it was too far away and my eyes ain't what they used to be. But I was wondering, like, is that a church that we done discussed over here or not? But anyway, he was looking at buildings for him, like looking at specs and all of that. And so then they said, well, why did Whitehead tell you that he wanted you to stream the services? Because part of his job was streaming the services. He said, oh, he wanted me to stream because he said he wanted to be like other big platforms like TD Jakes and Mike Todd. So that's why he wanted to stream. So that was important. He needed to be on the level of Jakes and Mike Todd. So then the AUSA says, you had access to, where did you stream through? He said, I streamed through his personal Instagram. I streamed the church services through Facebook. I streamed the church. He's saying it was personal. He had access to it and he streamed it on his personal platform. So then the AUSA said, how many followers does he have on Instagram? Objection, Your Honor, objection. Judge was like, sustained. I was like, dang. So that means when they sustain it, they don't answer the question because it was an improper question, according to the judge. The judge was very interesting because if you objected, all you had to do was say objection. And typically, I'm used to in court, you have to object and say your reason for the objection. So you have to say objection, hearsay. If it's going to be more than just saying one word like hearsay, relevance, foundation, form, something like that, then you ask for a sidebar because you don't want the jury to hear. Or if it's going to be a back and forth argument, you remove the jury. But for the most part, you object and you have to give a reasoning for it. And then the other side says their reasoning. So it was weird, but that's how they do it. They object, and the prosecution just kind of waited to see what the judge was going to say. She said sustain and overrule it. She sustained it, so we couldn't hear. So then she said, Mr. Anderson, did Whitehead tell you how he got those followers? I was like, wait a minute. Objection. Sustained. I was like, dang it. So we don't know how he got them followers, but apparently Rashid knows. Thank you so much, Shelby, for the super chat. She says streaming his service was Whitehead's downfall. That's how we all found out about it. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. So there goes that. We won't know because they objected and they didn't want us to know. So then he said, another thing he did for non-church work was he put together proposals to get loans for businesses that Whitehead said he owns. He said, apparently he owns some acreage in the Bahamas. And he also was supposed to do proposals related to Eric Adams because he was trying to get, how he can take advantage of different government programs and stuff like that. So that was part of the things he did outside of his church duties. And of course, he ain't get paid nothing. He also said when he was running for Brooklyn borough president, he was a campaign worker. He handed out flyers. He uploaded stuff to the finance committee. He assisted with the meetings. And the campaign worker just got the one that was on our channel for those that followed before. He actually just got a judgment against Whitehead too. I think it was last week. I posted it on my Instagram story. But yeah, so he said he put hours and hours and hours and hours in. But then he said, he told him that if he works hard enough and he can get matching donations, that he can get Mayor Adams to endorse him. And he said, so then the AUSA said, well, did Mayor Adams endorse him? He was like, no. And he was like, well, how did you find out when he didn't endorse him? He said he learned about it at a Zoom meeting. And Whitehead was pissed off and very, very upset because Mayor Adams said he wasn't going to endorse him for Brooklyn borough president. So then the AUSA said, Rashid, did you pay seeds and did you pay tithes? Rashid said, yeah, I did. He said, well, how much have you paid? Because he was only there from January 2020 to like May of 2021. He said, I paid between $13,000 and $14,000 in tithes. So he said he paid the 10%. He described, what the seeds and the tithing was as well. But he was saying his amount that he paid. So he said between January 2020 and May 2021, it was between 13 and 14K. He said his wife also paid tithes. He said he also gave seeds. That's money that went to Whitehead. And he said love seed. So they asked, what's a love seed? So he said Whitehead would give out to different church members. He would give out to different church members if you needed help. He would give love seeds. So then I guess Whitehead said he didn't want his staff struggling. So if you ever needed help, you can come to him if you needed help. So the AUSA said, have you ever gotten anything from him? He said, yeah, I've gotten a love seat about 2 or 3 times. It was probably around $1,500 total. So then the AUSA said, was there a time where you was in a difficult spot? He said, yeah, it was. He said, and he needed the church to assist him. So that must be what Whitehead was talking about in the text. He said in August 2020, there was, during the pandemic, he had a difficult patch because his wife lost her job and he didn't have any money to pay his whole mortgage. So he reached out to Whitehead and said, hey, my mortgage is $3,000 and something dollars. It was something like real astronomical. I was like, geesh. But I mean, it is New Jersey. The house they got, I think, was in New Jersey, New York, something like that. So he said, I'm short $1,058.93. Of course, this was in a text. Everything is in the text. So he said, he asked if Whitehead could help, and Whitehead agreed to assist. Hold on one second, guys. Sorry about that. Dev's gone. So, okay. So where were we at? So he said he was in a difficult spot and he was going to need some help. So he needed $1,058. So Whitehead actually gave him, and they showed the screenshot where Whitehead paid him and cash app him the $1,000. And so, Whitehead live, he get on my nerves. So he goes ahead and he, sends him the $1,000 screenshot. So then, he sends him the $1,000, whatever to pay his mortgage. So then the next month he needs help again. So then the AUSA said, well, did he help you? He was like, no, he basically said in a text, I think it was, he said, this is your second time asking, you should just defer your mortgage payments. So he ended up deferring his loans. So then he said he wanted to get into real estate. And he asked Whitehead, hey, I want to get into real estate. He was going to be his mentor. So then Rashid said that he drove a 2013 Chevy Cruze and the bumper was falling off. And he's driven it for like 6 years. So Whitehead told him, you should present yourself better, especially with real estate deals. People look at you by what you drive. So he was telling him he needed to get a new car. And he told him his cousin, Eric Whitehead, he would refer him to Eric Whitehead to get a new car. So he helped him purchase a Mercedes around that time. I think he said he had. So then the AUSA was like, well, what type of cars did Whitehead have? He said, well, around that time, I believe he had a gray sedan Mercedes. He had a Rolls Royce. And he had some type of car that was similar to like a Lincoln Suburban type big truck. So he said that he was embarrassed because Whitehead had him feeling embarrassed about his car. So he would park around the corner, when he would try to look at houses or whatnot. So he ended up buying a Mercedes off of what Whitehead said. And he paid $76,000 for this darn Mercedes and had like over $1,000 car note. So he can look the part. Then he says, he goes over basically a lot of his testimony matched his mom about being connected to the credit repair group, and once the loan, like they showed the text that once Anderson took her money out the account, it was actually a screenshot was given to Whitehead. Like they showed the text when Rashid sent the screenshot over to Whitehead to show him that Anderson had taken the money out of her account to give to him the $90,000. He testified when it came to the house situation with his mom that Whitehead offered to help find an investment property, buy it, fix it up. He would invest in it, and then transfer the deed, is what his understanding was. Then they go over the whole payments. I'm not gonna do this because it was the same thing that he said it was never a contract. Whitehead basically made that up. It was never a contract. He said it wasn't true. He said Whitehead never found properties for his mom. He always said he was busy. He was going back and forth between his church in New York and his church in Atlanta. And so he just did not have time to find, and he was campaigning. So he didn't have time. So he was trying to ask them to give the moms the money, the money back. So then he said in 2021, things started changing, where Whitehead would not really answer his phone calls and answer his texts and all of that. And so he said during 2021, he said that's when their relationship got real bad. He said his mom, his wife at the time was pregnant, and she had a difficult pregnancy. I guess she was I don't know if she had a difficult pregnancy, but I know she had a difficult labor. And he said that one time his wife told him that why do you want me to respect you when you let Whitehead talk to you the way that he talks to you? I was like, whoa. So apparently the wife was getting on him about letting Whitehead talk to him and treat him any old kind of way, according to her. So Whitehead, he ended up where Rashid opens up a real estate business. And I guess at one point, Whitehead wanted to kind of partner with him, but you needed a broker's license, and Whitehead doesn't have that. So he never planned on really, I guess, going into business with him, or maybe he did and found out he didn't have the license or couldn't get the license, whatever it was. And so he ended up on Facebook where he posted him opening up this business, and everybody's congratulations. So they put the Facebook post on the screen as an exhibit. Whitehead screenshots it and sends it to him and basically told him, oh, I see you're announcing this, and you're announcing this premature. You have a prideful spirit. You need to fast and pray because you're full of pride. You're out of order. It wasn't even an agreement on your logo. He was mad, he announced this or whatever, and told him he was full of pride and out of order. So then Rashid responded and was basically, I've stripped myself of pride a long time ago. You called me on Mother's Day and cussed me out. It wasn't a bishop who cussed me out like that. It was Lamor. Because what bishop talks to you like that? Why should I respect you the way you talk to me? And blah, blah, blah. So they went back and forth, and all the text was up there. Whitehead was going in on him how dare you? You full of pride. You got demons. Da, 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 da. So it was going off on him. So Rashid responded, and he was very respectful in all of his responses. He was very respectful to Whitehead. Listen, if there's anything, I'm always here to learn. If there's anything, that's cool. You could just tell me what's going on. I want to be a better person. Everything he was saying, but he's like, no, that's not what it is. I did it because I wanted to do it, basically. So Whitehead was mad because I think it just looked like he was losing a little bit of grip on him. And so that's when Rashid told him what his wife said. Like, my wife basically was like, she don't even see how she can respect me the way you talk to me like trash. And so they go off, and he basically tells Whitehead told him, I'm gonna tell Eric and them to send you need to send all your stuff back. You are no longer gonna be an elder of my church. Basically stripped him of his position. So that's the fallout that Pauline Anderson was, what was in the text that they were talking about, that Pauline Anderson said, I don't know nothing about what y'all talking about. I just need my 90,000 back. And so that's when that was done with that. So then about 2 days later, y'all not gonna believe this. 2 days later, Whitehead trying to stream live, and he's having a problem with restream, because remember, you done basically kicked this dude up out the church, but he was the one that was doing your streaming. So they was having some lady's son was doing it, and they couldn't get the streaming up. Do you know he texts Rashid and basically said the streaming is down, and he was upset about it and said this is gonna affect my tithes and my seeds because the streaming is down. Now you done went off on this man, and now you talking about the streaming is down, so this is gonna affect my tithes and my streaming. And during this time, I'm on my camera, keep going. During this time, he said he was in the hospital with his wife, because I told you she had a difficult pregnancy. And he was basically in the hospital with her while a lot of this stuff was going on. She was in there for like 7 to 8 days. So then they show like a message from May 14th of 21 where he said, you are full of pride. You do your thing, I'm out. You're out of line and full of pride. Once the election is over, I'll see if your mom wants to move forward. If not, I'll give the investment back. If anyone works with you in my church, let me know so I can let them know I don't have anything to do with it. That was on May 14th. On May 16th is when he said, trying to call you. He was calling him like he was blowing his phone up. Again, wife is in the hospital trying to have a baby. And they're showing all of this stuff. Conversations with Whitehead on three-way with the mom. They had phone records to match it. If they didn't have the phone record to match that it happened, they had text messages. So he said, trying to call you. I have church service and the restream isn't working. So this is like 2 days after you said I don't want to have nothing to do with you in the text messages. So the response was, and again, I'm paraphrasing because I couldn't obviously get it verbatim, and this was all on the screen on the evidence from the AUSA. The response was, Rashid said, you're trying to bully me. Like, I was feeding my daughter when you called. Basically, if you want to remove me from the church, it's up to you to remove me and all of that. Like, I'm not fighting you on that. But basically, when you was calling me, I'm feeding my daughter, blah, 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 blah. Just because I didn't pick up the phone as soon as you called me. So then the response was, you're full of pride. And then he said, your mother will get her money back when the contract is out, like when the term is out. So then the response from Rashid was, no. Whitehead responds, you're no longer an elder, you're a minister of this ministry. All documents are void. And then Rashid responded, let me know when you'll return the money. The 85,000, because remember the 5,000 was given to him already. So he said, let me know when you'll return the money. Mom asked for $5,000 to buy the land in Jamaica, so that's where the $5,000 came from. He said, and then Whitehead responds, and he was like saying a bunch of stuff, but then he said, trust me, you don't want this smoke. That's what he told Rashid in the text message. This is all the jury seeing all these text messages. So then he says, he lets him know, my mom is really scared. She just wants her money back because basically this is all she has. She's drawn it off of her retirement. And then he responded with the investment already started. She doesn't get to just ask for her money back. And then he said, stop texting me. You guys seen the text up there. That's where that happened. Where he was like, stop texting me. Stop texting me. You can go through Erica. That's where you see that text that we went over in the beginning. You said can't trust anyone these days. Thank you for all you do for your subs. Yeah, I'm not Nyla, but thank you, Cher, for the super chat. I appreciate that. And yeah. Then did we go for break? Oh no, then I had some more text messages. He was like, Whitehead said, you don't control anything. And then Rashid responded and said there was no contract, nothing was signed. You said after the election you'll start working on it. And so then Whitehead says, so you lied then. You never had your mom sign the contract. I have proof of payment. And so what was crazy too is, and one of the texts Whitehead was like, well, if your mom want the money back, then I want all the money that I've ever given you and helped you out. So basically, I'm gonna need you to calculate that extra money I gave you to help pay your mortgage, everything I've ever done for you. I want that deducted from your mama stuff too. So he responded and basically said, he responded and said, that's a church thing and it has nothing to do with my mom, but I've given way more to this church than what you've given to me. So essentially, I don't owe you nothing. So you talking about you want your little $1,500 back or whatever you gave me? I've given between 13 and 14,000 with me alone. So I don't owe you nothing. So wait on it. So he said, so then Whitehead responded, you have a demon that only God can deal with. Watch God's judgment on your life. And then he wrote Psalms 105 and 15. You'll see how much God loves me. Anything given to me is a donation, by the way. So I guess he said that again. And then the AUSA said, do you know what Psalms 105 15 is? He said, yeah, it's basically do my prophet no harm. And he was like, so basically they're saying if you do things to, touch not my anointed, do my prophet no harm. So he like did his definition of what he thought that what that scripture meant. And so apparently after that, Whitehead somehow, they don't know if it was on purpose or on accident, but somehow Rashid a few months later ended up getting an email, and it was of a house that was like even bigger than the Paramus house. And I guess Whitehead was trying to buy it, and the closing documents were in there. And he said that the down payment was $100,000 that he was going to put on the house, but he doesn't know if he ever bought the house or any of that. And so that was when it was 5 o'clock and it was time to go. So Rashid hadn't even finished his testimony. He only was on direct, but he had a notepad and it was thick like this. And it was full of text and emails that was in front of him, even though they put it on the screen. And actually the AUSA said like it wasn't all the text messages and it was not all the emails. So Whitehead had the relationship with Rashid. So he had more of the evidence and his mom was the middle person. I believe that what they're going to try to argue, or what their argument is that she invested this money. And of course, when you deal with investments, you just don't know how investments go. Now, the issue again is, what did you invest it in? So that'll be interesting to see how this goes. And next week, I know, depending on how much rest I get, because now I'm invested. I'm like, shoot, I want to see what happens. So he'll be able to put on his defense, and then maybe we'll have a better understanding when he puts on his defense, what defense he has. You have to defend these bank statements. You have to defend this check stubs. You have to defend what Miss Anderson. They also asked Miss Anderson about how did he respond to the lawsuit, and she said it's still pending, and he actually tried to get it dismissed. I thought she was going to specifically say he sued her, because he actually did sue Pauline Anderson, and he sued her son. He sued Rashid as well. So we have not got to any of the information. I have not got into it related to Belmonte. We all know Belmonte, who is indicted himself. It is anticipated that Belmonte is going to plead the fifth, as he should. As he should, because he has his own case. Whitehead wants to call Belmonte. The government never was going to call Belmonte. They have a special agent that is going to come in and authenticate the recordings. And so they want to call Belmonte. And so he was subpoenaed, from my understanding. The only other witness I did see was Wendell George. You guys probably have heard that name. That was an individual when we were doing the Glory of God situation, where I showed you screenshots of them, someone selling the furniture in the Glory of God church. It was under Wendell George's name. Also, his name has been on a couple of like subpoenas for service as well. So I don't know what he's supposed to, but he's supposed to be, I think, connected with the Belmonte situation. And when the Belmonte situation, and we'll go over that allegation in the indictment as well. I'm gonna look to see what some of your questions are. But that was pretty much a wrap up. I hope it wasn't too much, but because that was 6 hours on Tuesday and 6 hours on Wednesday, is what I just told you. Toria said, did the lawsuits go anywhere? Not yet. So they're still there. They're just sitting there, but they have not gone anywhere. The Anderson case is on pause and still in litigation. I think they have some motion hearings coming up in like April or something. So I think Whitehead should have just gave her money back. I'm not really understanding. Yeah, I'm not really understanding. Like, I'm really, and I'm very defense oriented. So because that's what I did. So but I'm having a hard time figuring out, especially with the bank statement situation, what the actual defense is. So I'm very curious. You know what I'm saying? Might have to rearrange some things. I don't know if I'll be able to do next week, but I'll definitely try to swing it. But I'm really baffled. I'm really, really baffled. Like, I knew the Anderson situation pretty well because it's in the lawsuit. They just did it criminally, decided to do a criminal indictment as well. But I'm just I'm really baffled, honestly. I don't know. Said you can't make this stuff up. Yeah. So Rashid was hurt. Like, you can tell Rashid really, there were texts where he would say, love you, son, love you too. It was like, Bishop, I'm going to do this. What do you think? Bishop, I'm about to do this. What do you think? Bishop, I looked this up. How do you think about that? Bishop, blah, 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 blah. So, yes, he really trusted him. It was obvious. It was very, very obvious that he trusted him, and he was looking for some type of a father figure. No, I did not see. I didn't see anybody in there supporting him. I'm gonna be perfectly honest. There were, you can tell it was a couple of reporters because they were writing it down. But so they wouldn't be for him. But I didn't, and then it was a lot of AUSAs as well that were coming in. That I thought was interesting. Perhaps they were watching the trial just because they want to get that trial exposure. But they were coming in and out. But thank you, Rain C. I appreciate that. He wild card, very mild manner, very, like, he was. I don't know what I was expecting of him, but I don't think it was that. But He was dressed very nice. He was just very, I can see that somebody who looked like they have money, but when you look at the campaign worker, it was the same. He got enamored with, I'm from the hood. I'm connected with a future politician. He knows Eric Adams. So next week, allegedly, there's supposed to be an employee of Eric Adams, I guess, that may be testifying. It's supposed to be some agents testifying. And of course, Whitehead puts on his defense and puts on his case. This is nothing but the prosecution's um case right now. But he did say that he said. But there were so many documents. It was crazy. They were like, could you go to document 404? I was like, 404-23. I was like, geesh. They had so many text messages and email. And I think they were being overly cautious. So literally everything that was said that Miss Anderson testified to, her son could corroborate it through either text message, email, or even a phone record. So like even when they were on three-way with the Transamerica and like with the whole $100,000, they showed it was a conference call on the phone record between Miss Anderson, Rashid, and Whitehead. Then they asked like how many cell phones does Whitehead have? He said he had like 3 or 4. So they were like text messages where he said, I'm gonna call you on my other phone. And so then they would ask, well, did he call you on his other phone? They're like, yeah. So it was definitely a lot. Definitely a lot. So I'm curious to see what his defense is again. Innocent until proven guilty. He sits today. He is an innocent man. JJ, thank you so much for the super sticker. Sin, thank you. I haven't seen you in a while. Thank you so much for the super sticker. I appreciate that. And this is what it reminded me of. I'm not lying. When we went over Caesar, that's exactly what I was thinking, what that Anderson thing sounded like to me. It sounded like flipping NJ. That's what it sounded like. Adam, yeah, it's supposed to be some text messages. Yes, it is. So yeah. So no, Sharon, you're fine. No worries. I like Nyla. It's cool. He said I watched her. Thank you so much for your support. Make sure you guys hit the like button. We had a nice little crowd in here talking about Whitehead. I was like, oh Lord, these people gonna be like, who is he? Because I probably had 3,000 subscribers when I was talking about him. So now I gotta start from the beginning. But I hope all of the ones that didn't know who he was, I gave you guys a decent intro so you guys will know who he is. And we'll see. So next week, it sounds like by Friday, they should probably have a verdict because it sounds like they're trying to wrap up by Wednesday. If all goes well, it should be wrapped up by Wednesday. So we'll see when it gets into the hand of the jurors. No, the prosecution won't be, they're not done. They still have the cell phone data agent. They have a couple of special agents that are going to deal with the calls from Belmonte, the recordings. They estimated they'll be done by Tuesday. I think is what it's like going to take them a whole nother day to get their stuff done. And they told the jurors like they planned on being done by midweek next week, but I don't think the judge is very optimistic because, like, again, Rashid was on the stand all afternoon on yesterday. And yeah, so oh, Pam, do you think Whitehead should be going live during this time? Chai ain't my client. He can go live all he want to. Ain't my client. Hopefully he's not talking about the case. Maybe he's trying to do some prayer or something. What he doing? Like he said that he was gonna somebody told me this. I don't know how true it is. I didn't hear it, but I know he told people to fast and pray, and he was saying he was gonna give more instructions. So maybe he's giving some instructions. So that's all I got. On his live, he seems a little somber. I'm just saying. Thank you so much for the super chats. His attorney is Laversa. Thank you again for the cash app. I appreciate all of the love. This helps because, baby, New York is expensive. I was like, oh my jeez, oh Pete. I appreciate you guys. His lawyer is Dawn Florio. She hasn't said anything since I've been there. She has, I believe it's her associate, which is a white guy. He's an associate, and then he had an attorney probably a week before the trial that entered an appearance. So it's a black guy that has been doing cross. I have not seen Don do anything the days that I was there. That doesn't mean, I don't know. She may have done opening statements. I don't know because I wasn't there for that. But those are his attorneys. So he basically has 3 attorneys, and then it looks like there may be a paralegal that is with them as well. That's been there. So Althea, thank you so much for the cash app. But yeah. So all of you guys have been waiting on your Whitehead update. There you go. I told you guys if I had something to talk about, I'll let you guys know. I just don't get on here and just be talking for no reason. You said I don't care how much he fast and pray. Oh my goodness. JJ said when they searched his house, Whitehead stated he only had 1 cell phone. Everything the AUSA does, I don't take anything as not being relevant because it sounds like they are just like when the Bank of America guy came on. I was like, oh, he's just going to form the foundation that the cashier's check was deposited. But then it was a check that had nothing to do with Anderson that he showed was a false, said it was falsified document that was being made out to his company. So I think their argument is that maybe he didn't do this stuff and it was somebody else, maybe somebody working for him. I don't know, but I'm going to sit back and see what his defense is and I'm going to report it just like I do. So they have to do this right so he doesn't have a chance to appeal if he wins. Yeah, but the judge actually was saying that they were going, asking them to kind of speed it up if they could. But I get it. I can't imagine the work they put in this case. They have like 3 AUSAs that's on their side as well. And that's a lot of work because I was just looking at the text messages and the emails. I was like, man, they've been probably reading. Their eyes are glossed over and everything. So you got that. Then you got comparing bank statements. Then you got comparing this and comparing that and comparing this. Then the Belmonte stuff is a whole nother fiasco. And that's probably his strongest, I would think, without really looking at it, because Belmonte is. So the government felt like Belmonte shouldn't even take the stand because they know he's going to plead the 5th because I guess his attorney has told them that, as he should. He is indicted himself on another case. So you don't do anything to incriminate yourself because everything can be used against you. But on the defense side, I can see why Whitehead and them would want him on the stand, because how would it look to a juror if you plead the 5th? If you get on the stand and you say, I don't want to answer, I want to plead the 5th, I'm self-incrimination, in the eyes of a juror, it may look like you probably, why are you pleading the 5th? That's what people said about Kelsey with the Tory Lane situation. Everybody was like, why she plead the 5th? She must have did it. Some people really do think that way. So I can see why they would want him on there. Now, I don't know how long the judge is going to let it go with him just saying, I plead the 5th after every question, because you have to plead it after every question. So I don't know how long they'll let it go, but he does have his own witness list and he's going to do his own statement. I do, like I said, believe Belmonte is listen. he ain't right. I really believe personally that I'm thinking maybe they had corroboration of some things that perhaps Adam's name was used through emails or something or text, because they're supposed to have someone from his camp that's supposed to testify. So I'm sure the way they're moving, they have more solid evidence to back it up, not just Belmonte, but they just don't want to go over through the Belmonte and his credibility and all that stuff, having him on the stand. But Belmonte, based on the stuff that I saw, it looks like he's been talking to the feds for a while. So it would behoove him to be able to bring them somebody to help his own self, in my opinion. So I can see where that would, you know, I would really go hard on that too if I was the defense attorney. I would go hard on him because he's not. We went over Belmonte as well. He ain't right, and so you gotta go hard with what you got, right? You say he's gonna get off live as soon as I get off mine. Oh, yeah, no. Belmonte is to testify without the jury present. Is that were you at the court? Is that what you're saying they're gonna do? I mean, they're supposed to make decisions. I don't know. Again, like I said, I had to get back to work. So I don't know. What they can do, they can see what his testimony is going to be outside the presence of the jury, because obviously they have to hear it or it's not relevant. But so perhaps they're gonna have him testify to see what they're gonna elicit and what the questions are gonna be, and then construct it to see what questions you can and cannot answer based on it may self-incriminate him. It may incriminate himself. Because I can see him like just being on the stand. That's my voice, forming a foundation for the AUSA. But I'm sure that's not what Whitehead and them want to do. They want to get into the nitty gritty. Because apparently, like because Whitehead sued Belmonte too, remember? I don't know what happened with that case, but I got to look that up because he sued Belmonte as well. No, you're not supposed to do social media or none of that. Absolutely not. You're not supposed to watch YouTube. You're not supposed to do any of that stuff. Uh, of course, you don't know if they do. If they say they didn't, I mean, you gotta take their word for it. But um, yeah, I agree. VSB said Belmonte is a small piece and a big part. I agree. That's why I said I personally believe, without concrete information, this is just my speculation. I believe that Belmonte they thought it was another key, a gateway to Adams. And perhaps Whitehead may have embellished his relationship with Adams. Because now that we see that Adams, I knew he didn't endorse Whitehead, and I thought that was weird. But now we see from Rashid's testimony that there was actually a Zoom meeting and he was thinking he was going to endorse him, and he found out he wasn't, and he was upset. So perhaps Whitehead thought he was closer to Adams than he wasn't. Now I can guarantee you, Adams don't even mess with him no more like that, because Whitehead said that. He said because of all the media and the press, he doesn't really talk to him anymore. He said that himself. So that's that. It looks that way. Is that where he going live from? You guys said he's live. Is he over there with the things on the wall or whatever? That's his house. And in the Gloria God situation, he does have another lawyer. You guys, if you don't know, Ponder is Ghost. Ponder done withdrew out of all of his cases. Ponder basically said that Whitehead threatened him and all of this stuff, and he had emails attached to it on what was allegedly said by Whitehead. He attached that to his federal case that he withdrew from. But all the rest of them, he just kind of said it was a breakdown in a relationship, and that Whitehead fired him. Said he didn't want him to be his attorney. So he's withdrew out a lot of his cases, but he was the one that filed a lot of these cases, like against Anderson and Belmonte and all of that. So it'd be interesting to see if he gets anybody to replace him to take over them cases. But on the Glory of God case, right now there is a stay where it can't be an eviction because they're trying to figure out who owns the building. So Whitehead's attorney was trying to get emergency motion to try to stop it, saying Glory of God doesn't own it, period. So it shouldn't be. That whole case is such a mess that I was just like, I just want to see when there's a hearing to show who owns it, who can sell it, who's going to end up with ownership of it, and that's it. Because we only really talked about, thank you, Sarah, so much for the cash out. We only really talked about the eviction portion of it because there was an order for that. When it came to the ownership of the Glory of God building, it was all over the place on all sides, in my opinion. So I like the people from Glory of God, but it sounded like some things were missed. And that may have been the reasoning why the property went into the tax foreclosure sale, and then it was purchased by Moses, and then somehow I still don't understand how Whitehead got involved in this. That's why I said a hearing is necessary. But Moses filed Whitehead because Whitehead filed a deed saying he owned it. So I have no clue how he even got involved. So it's nothing to say on that case. I told you guys the campaign worker got a judgment. He has a defamation case with Larry Reed. That case, there's nothing on that case. Like, he filed a motion. Larry filed a motion to dismiss. There's no response on that yet. He also sued Tasha K. Tasha K basically put in a stay because she's in bankruptcy. So that case ain't going nowhere. Ponder Ruth drew out of that case too. The Connecticut case where he's trying to the building, that went into there was a case for foreclosure right before it was time to do the actual sale, I guess, the permission to sell and go to the prices. Whitehead filed bankruptcy on behalf of the company. So there's a stay on that case till July. So there's like really nothing to talk about. So all the people that was DMing me, like, talk about it. Like, I'm not just going to talk about this man for no reason. I'm like, I get it. There are a lot of people that don't like him, that have personal issues. He hasn't done anything personal to me except talk about I was bald headed and what else he say? I was a failed attorney and all of that. But I didn't talk about him for 6 months and he's still going on platforms talking about me. So clearly you have no issue with me talking about you because I'm the one that drew a little bit of numbers towards you. But I'm not doing this to get back for people. This was my issue with the Whitehead situation with a lot of people that DM'd me, and why I really stopped talking to people related to Whitehead. Because if you have the ability to file motions against him or lawsuits yourself and you didn't do it, you're part of the problem. If you worked for this dude and knew that he was doing people wrong, allegedly, and you didn't do nothing, you're part of the problem. If you sit up here and let him bully you or whatever, and you don't do anything to stop it, you're part of the problem. And because all of you guys were complacent, there were allegedly more people out here that got harmed because of it. So now y'all think I'm gonna come out here and come after a man that didn't do nothing to me or my family. And I'm gonna come out here and take all these bullets for y'all because you didn't have the balls to go and do it yourself. I'm not that girl. I'm not that girl. I get it. People was taking glee and they was happy because they like, oh, he's being exposed and all of that. That's not my job and that's not my purpose. My purpose was to go over the cases. You know what I'm saying? And again, with Gloria God, we tried to help as much as we could because we knew it was an order for them to get back in their building. We did that and we moved on. And that's what we do. But for people to think that it was some personal thing, it's not personal. Like, I'm just going over the cases. And that's it. It's not personal. I'm going to be unbiased on both sides. If he come with some defense, whatever that may be, then that's that. That's it. So yeah, that's it. But anyways, guys, it's been over 2 hours. I thank you guys for your patience. I know you guys have been waiting on this live for a minute. And I was just exhausted. And as you guys see why I was exhausted, going through all of this and writing it down and figuring out and making sure that I present it the best way that I can. And that's that. But yeah, shout out to Yves Andre. He was a campaign worker who did go to court and he got his judgment. Gloria God is in there. They fighting. Miss Pauline Anderson, she started the ball rolling where we didn't even know nothing about none of the allegations. I give y'all props with the ones that's sitting up there trying to watch everybody else try to fight because you didn't have the kahunas to do it. I don't give you props. This is what it is. Yeah, part of it is Lisa Glaze. Thank you so much for the $5. I appreciate it. But yeah. So anyways, I'm out of here. Hope you guys enjoyed the live. I know that Phone Calls from Prison did a video. If tomorrow I'll go to my second page and I'll pick a video that you guys want to so we can go over that on Shirley Strawberry. I'm on something else when it got something to do with Ernest. I'm trying to figure out some of the information I got on that hearing on Friday still blew my mind, and I'm still trying to get more information on that, and we'll end up doing a live on that. But we're going to follow this until we get a verdict. Right now, the prosecution is still presenting their case, and then Whitehead will be able to present his. Thank you guys again for all of the cash apps and the super chats. Make sure you hit that like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Y'all, I gotta play this. I ain't played this in a while, so y'all know your girl gotta play this.
You's a clown. That's what you. Why don't you call me a cardboard bishop now? You tough? Call me a cardboard bishop now.
He's not gonna call you that.
Huh? Look on Facebook Live. Call me a cardboard bishop now. You clown. That's what you are. You clown. That's what you are. Why don't you say what you say on Facebook Live, sucker?
No.
I know y'all missed that. I had to hit y'all with the one time for the one time. You guys have a good night.